The concept and ideas behind my painting Visages d'Eve. This painting depicts the apocalyptic moment when a psychic phenomenon is born out of our protagonist in order to ameliorate against some form of destructive force. There's a negativity built into her existence, and the aim is to ameliorate against this malevolent psychic force, if you like. The painting subject takes its beginnings from the psychological phenomenon of multiple personality disorder. This is depicted in the book The Three Faces of Eve by Thigpen and Cleckley. You can also see it in Sybil, the book by Flora Rita Schreiber, which has subsequently been somewhat denounced as you would say the psychologist was perhaps influencing the subject to yield information towards multiple personality disorder. So you could say it was perhaps ingenuous in Sybil, but still a fascinating story nevertheless. But I would say perhaps this painting is more leaning towards The Three Faces of Eve, which is of course a true validated story, if one of course believes in multiple personality disorder. For my personal opinion, I believe it is to be the case that people suffer from multiple personalities. In the painting, so our protagonist reveals her additional alters, if you like, through mirrors, and this particular psychic trifurcation results in additional two opposing alters being created, each with leanings towards visions of order and chaos. So you can say there's a bit of yin and yang going on in there. There's darkness and there's light. These opposing forces are manifesting within her, and this is the nature of her trauma. You have the image of a robin in a small book to the top left-hand side of the painting. There are multiple images in there and references. One of them worth noting is the robin. I'm going to read a quote now, and it's from David Lynch's film Blue Velvet. All of a sudden, thousands of robins were set free, and they flew down and brought this blinding light of love. And it seemed like that love would be the only thing that would ever make a difference. And it did. So I guess it means there is trouble until the robins come. And these words were spoken by Sandy in Blue Velvet. A Christian legend suggests a robin pulled from a thorn from the crown of Christ whilst he was on the cross, and it was Christ's blood that created the bird's red breast. Thus the robin is associated with suffering, in particular Christ. In this instance, the robin is allocated to our protagonist's suffering. Here the robin symbolises the vanquishing of a malevolent force, of light conquering the dark. The trapped bug between the robin's beak represents the antagonist and the malevolent elements for which he stands. When the robin returns, tells us hope for our protagonist. And of course you see the robin in Blue Velvet is at the very end of the scene, has a bug in its mouth. And this represents the kind of underbelly which was revealed by the protagonist in the film. And so lightness conquers dark at the end of that film. The goodness of Sandy and Jeffrey. There are also images of chess pieces in here. In Orwell's novel 1984, a chess game is played by Winston, which symbolises his internal mental conflict. To quote, "He examined the chess problem and set out the pieces. It was a tricky ending involving a couple of knights. White to play and mate in 2 moves. And later on, white always mates," he thought with a sort of cloudy mysticism. "Always without exception, it is so arranged. In no chess problem since the beginning of the world has black ever won. Did it not symbolise the internal unvarying triumph of good over evil? So the chess pieces in this painting metaphorically describe the psychic discord of chaos and order, the battle of good over evil experienced by our protagonist and her alters. The Orwellian scenario hints at the ultimate outcome of a protagonist's internal conflict. 3 Faces of Eve give an analysis of the life of a patient who is said to have had 3 personalities, 2 of which are Eve White and Eve Black. White always mates. So this hints at the nature of what the outcome might be between this conflict between the alters and the protagonist. In the chess game with Winston, White always wins. The painting portrays the psychopathology of the protagonist. An illustrated book hints at the source of the apocalyptic event which generated this. The male antagonist is revealed as a malevolent force within her historical narrative. The European fairy tale of Red Riding Hood is referenced, symbolizing innocence disrupted by a malevolent hand. With the big bad wolf by his side, the antagonist's lupine presence and destructive deeds are declared. He bears the plagued marks of the tainted, whereas she bears the marks declaring sufferance and desire for cessation. The altar in the lower mirror, or rather I should say the altar in the upper mirror, leans towards Our Lady of Pain, and this is following on from Swinburne's poem Dolores. To quote, "Cold eyelids that hide like a jewel, hard eyes that grow soft for an hour, the heavy white limbs and the cruel red mouth like a venomous flower." She is the negative element in this conflict. There are memories and secrets in the kisses of her lips. She is the darker Venus, daughter of lust and death. The serpent is evident within an apple, referencing the fall, of course. For this altar, the soul is subservient to the flesh. Hanging from her wrist is one of Herman Rorschach's ink block cards. She holds card number 6. This card often elicits associations related to interpersonal closeness. It is specifically what's called a sex card. It is likely sexual precepts being reported more frequently than in any other card. This card references the nature of the altar in the upper mirror, specifically her worship of flesh over soul. Contrasting with that is the altar in the lower mirror. We may think of her as Our Lady of Sorrows, to follow on from the Virgin Mary. The altar in this mirror leans towards Our Lady of Sorrows, where the soul reigns supreme over the flesh. She is bejeweled in the blue of Mary, with pearls as quintessential symbols of virginity. From a mirror hangs a porte-saints, reliquary of the Our Lady of Sorrows, a miniature pocket shrine common in the late 1800s through World War II. Carried by soldiers who took them to war, she carries her saint to her own internal war, remaining chaste, sealed and impermeable as she does so. That is the end of this painting on concepts and meanings for Visages d'Eve.